Hi. GM, everybody. GM. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about how to, design communities. And so I guess, the first question I have is how many of you here already have a community of 12 or plus regular strangers that you guys are part of? Like, any community members here? Great. So you guys definitely know a little bit more about communities. Well, today, how many of you want to start a community? Right? Okay, cool. So that's really what we're going to be talking about today, So community is the moat, right? And when you build a great community, it kind of gives you that big advantage. And so my name is Tran, and I'm the regional lead for Superteam in the APAC region. For some of you that might not know what Superteam is the community layer, if you will, for the Solana Foundation, right? So what we do is we try to go into various countries, we open up a Superteam, and that provides us the community for that country. And the goal for each one of those communities is to try to find the best developers, the best artists, the best folks to really build exclusively on the Solana ecosystem. Right now, we've got over 18 different communities. I came out of the Superteam Vietnam community, which we started a little over 2.5 years, and ever since then, we've opened up over 18 different communities all around the world. So we've got communities in Canada, Mexico, Brazil, France, UK, Nigeria. In the APAC region, we've got super teams in Vietnam, Japan, South Korea, which we just launched the other day. And so we're really trying to expand pretty much all around the world. Audiences are not communities, right? Today I'm having a conversation with you guys up on stage, but we're really not a community. Maybe later on when I come and talk to you guys one-on-one, we can start kind of building those bonds for what communities really are. But communities really are defined as the social bonds between the members and not necessarily the audience, right? And so the purpose of this speech really today is to talk about how do we design communities, right, that will last for a long time, and more importantly, how do we design communities that last even when the leader goes away from those communities, right? So to draw an analogy in this speech, there's product design and there's community design, right? They're ostensibly kind of the same things, but communities like products don't happen by accident. They're created by design. So a product is created by design, but there's a playbook and there's specific guidelines for people to use it. Communities, even like Superteam, for example, are designed with humans, so we'll kind of fumble through the process, and that's kind of okay. Today, we're going to be talking about design. Great communities don't happen by accident, right? How to launch a community, putting together the puzzle pieces, and growth, progressive decentralization, and all that kind of good stuff. But I'm going to really focus today a lot more on the design aspect of the community, right? So community design 101, what's important? First question to ask yourself is, who is the community designed for? So your users are not necessarily your community members. Community members, again, it's the social bond that happens between the people. Community members might not even be the users early on. And I'll give you a couple examples, right? For Superteam, it's the power users, right? Superteam is really about people who develop products together. That's what creates the communities. Jupiter, it's about new users, right? That's kind of the ethos, but not every user on Jupiter is necessarily part of the community. Jupiter is probably the biggest, the most widely used decentralized application in all of crypto, but really it's the 3,000 guys that are inside that Discord server that's talking about how to create that giant unified markets theory. Those are the people that are really part of the community. And then Mad Lads, those are the culture seekers, right? Not necessarily every Mad Lad user or holder is part of the community, but the guys who are on those Discord servers, they're talking about the culture. They're saying "fuck it" on their Twitter. Those are the people that are really part of the community. And for Turbine, for example, those are the learner communities. And if you're part of the Sanctum, it's really the experimenter community. So you have to think about your audience, right? One really interesting way to think about your audience is to think about who isn't a member of your community. So you have a community for everyone, then you really have a community for no one. So that's kind of who the community is for. So why are they coming together, right? So there's kind of two ways to look at why people come together. One way to build a community is through transformation, and one way is to build it through selection, right? Transformation is a much easier way to kind of look at how to build a community. If you think about like people that go through accelerator programs, right? Like YC, for example, right? Y Combinator. You know, you kind of come into the program as one way, and then you kind of measure the success of that person leaving the program through measurable outcomes after they leave the program. Superteam, for example, on the other hand, is more of a selection process, right? We look for the right type of builders. We look for the right type of people. We select those people to become part of the communities, and they kind of embrace the ethos. So a couple examples again. So if you're the type of members that we're looking for are people who want to build, earn, and learn, right? Jupiter, it's really the community is about how do we grow that pie? How do we get to that giant unified markets theory, right? Mad Lads people, it's really about the community member is really network folks and degens, right? One thing I would say is not part of the Superteam communities is we do not look for people who talk about trading, right? I know we're all in Web3 and we're kind of all degens and everything like that, but people who join the Superteam community are actually not allowed to talk about trading or shill tokens within our communities, right? That's the kind of the anti-member of our communities. But you know, if you're part of a different community, that's something else, right? Turbine folks, really, you know, everybody in that community, it's about learning how to code, right? That's the heart of the community. So I see you probably got we got Turbine people here. I see some Sanctum folks back over there. So there's, you know, we all of us are part of different types of communities. So we've defined kind of like who's the community for, why are they coming together, and where do they get together? And this is kind of one of those interesting questions, right? I mean, you know, how many people here love Discord, right? How many people absolutely hate Discord? Okay, great. I mean, everybody says that Discord is where the Web3 communities are at, but the reality is the communities are wherever they actually are, right? Be it Discord, be it Twitter, be it Telegram, be it WhatsApp. You want to make sure that the community is where the community actually is. Like the technology is just the tool to bring the community together, but when you're trying to build a community, think about where they actually are, and then focus onto those things, right? So who's the community for? Why are they coming together? Where do they get together? And more importantly, how do they spend their time together, right? So really the question you have to ask yourself is, what do they want? You know, what do they need more of? For the Superteam communities, it's about how do we earn and how do we build our product, right? What change do we want to see in their lives? Well, for the Superteam community, it's really about how to build a great product and help those people launch it. What problems do they have that can only be solved together? What's the thing that would make them say, shut up, take my time, right? Those are the questions that you want to ask when you're thinking about building that community for yourself, right? For the Superteam community, it's really about earnings. Jupiter, it's about connecting the world. Mad Lads, it's kind of about that comedy, that adrenaline. You know, it's shit posting with each other, and it's kind of talking crap. And of course, Turbine, it's about workshops together and building and learning within those communities. And the other parts of the design of like what it takes to build a community right now, it's obviously when you're starting the community out, you got to think about your budgets, your roles, your hiring, who's doing what, and how are you paying for it. Having those things kind of defined early on will make a huge difference in the future. Measuring success, i.e. ROI, just because it's qualitative doesn't mean it's impossible to measure, right? And branding and community voice. The way you kind of speak early on influences the way your community speaks. And that's really kind of an important thing. Like, you know, if you look at Armani and Tristan early on for the Mad Lads community, you know, they kept on saying, fuck it, and then everybody kept on saying it. You know, they kept on saying, wow, people in the community started saying, wow. So it's really important to kind of find that brand, that voice within your community, and use that voice consistently so the community kind of knows who they are. And when you're ready to launch, you know, onboarding is next to godliness, which is the single highest lever that you can focus on. So we have a whole onboarding process for a Superteam of how to bring people together, and it's kind of the same process over and over again. And that process is a very scalable process that we do across all 18 different countries that we have a Superteam in. You know, make sure that your group chats don't suck. I mean, there are graveyards of Discord channels out there and Telegram chats that you will never, ever see again. And that's because, the group chats suck. So it's really, really important as the leaders and as the early community members to make sure, A, they don't suck, and that you're seeking high-quality conversations that keep that community engaged, right? That is one of the single most important pieces of it. And one important thing that we consider is community calls. Consistency, 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 right? A community is really only alive if it knows that if there are consistent things that do every single week. And for the Superteam communities, we do a weekly community call where every single week people are willing to give us 1 hour of their time to get together and to have that one conversation. What did we do this week? What are the wins of the week? Can the community members contribute and talk about like the things they did? Can we talk about the things that are happening in the future? And now we grew those community calls from, the community calls from each super team around the world to the global community call that Cash does. And I think the last time we did it this last month, there was over 4,500 people on those community calls. So it really grew from something that happened like, a few dozen people to 4,500 people over a period of time. And so that community calls, that consistency is really, really important. So how do we grow these communities, right? As Balaji says, IRL meetups, right? Cloud first, land last, but not land never. Right? It's very, very important for communities to actually meet up in real life. I think that is really one of the key ways to bring the communities together. Progressive decentralizations. So this is really interesting in the sense of you want your community to grow, especially this is Web3. We talk about decentralization all the time. We want it to grow in a decentralized way. And there's we have a litmus test called the bus test, right? So the bus test says that I might be the community lead for Superteam Vietnam, but over time, as I'm building that community, do I fit the bus test, which is if a bus hits me the next day, right, will the community survive, right? Is there somebody that can take over that community? And that's really extremely important as you build a community. Obviously, it doesn't happen at the very beginning, but as you grow over time, you want to make sure that your community becomes decentralized, that there are different leaders inside that community, and that those leaders can take over even if, say, for example, the person that's leading before gets hit by a bus, right? And of course, more importantly, it's about community contributions. For at least the Superteam community, it's about trying to earn bounties together. It's trying to get grants from Solana Foundation and so much more. So that's essentially it. I kind of ran through that. This presentation was put together by Cash Donda before, and I'm trying to kind of preach the message of how to build Superteam communities or dynamic communities in Web3. So at this point, I'd love to take questions from the audience. Yes, in the front row. What do I think about Bitcoin communities?
Meme coin communities.
Oh, meme coin communities. Yeah, they're, it depends, right? If the communities are about trading, right, then there's that shared that's their shared purpose, right? That's the stitch that kind of keeps the community bonds together, right? So if that's what you want to do and that's how you want to spend your time and you want to build a community around it, God bless you, right? Just make sure I get the alpha on what you guys are doing.
Okay, I will tell you.
I have a question. So how do you strike a balance between sort of exclusivity and inclusivity in a community?
Right. Great question, right? And I think it goes back to who you don't want as the members inside your community, right? It's kind of like, for the Superteam community, you want it to be a little exclusive, right? So people can come to Superteam events, people can interact with the various Superteam community members, but to be a community member, to get those benefits of being inside the community, to get the alpha, to get the airdrops, right? We were very lucky early on. Being a Superteam community member got you on the Mad Lads whitelist, which has been like probably one of the most profitable PFPs in the history of Web3, at least in this cycle here. But what we want to make sure is that to be a member, there is exclusivity, right? In the sense of you have to win a bounty. You have to be able to earn a grant. You have to place within a hackathon, or you have to do something extremely positive for the community to be actually to go from what we consider like a lurker to a full-fledged member inside the community, right? And so you want to create that kind of barrier to entry to a certain degree that makes it that anybody can't just come in and be part of that community.
Thanks, An. I like the idea of this bus test, where like at any given moment, the leader of a community could, God forbid, something happens to them, and having someone being able, or the community take over and sustain. But I guess, I mean, how do you look at that from like a pragmatic view? How do you put systems or something in place to make sure that there is kind of that next person up, or so that it's able to continue on?
Yeah, great question. It's kind of why we call it progressive decentralization, right? So it just can't happen right away where, in governance, for example, there's a president, there's a vice president, so inside the structure, there's a way to kind of build that. But for communities, they're usually not that kind of like hardcore structure, so you progressively want to decentralize your community over time. I think over time, you as the community lead, if you're going to start a community, you want to set the ground rules of kind of where you see that community, and over time, right, through trust, through just time and work itself, you progressively decentralize to people that you can trust inside that community. It doesn't happen overnight, but just like all decentralized communities, it just takes time for that network effect to take place.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much for your time this morning. If you want to talk, I'll be hanging out over here later on.